Welcome to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the movie review show from friends you can trust. Every week, we broadcast a review of a new film, talk about some film news, and recommend what to watch. We've been talking, critiquing, and gushing over movies since we were in high school, and we aim to bring you honest conversation on relevant cinema. I'm here with my brother, Shaun,
Hey,
and we will be talking about the film Dear Evan Hansen.
hmm
That'll be our main featured review for this week, but I want to do a little side bit. And we wanted to talk to everybody about what is remaining for the rest of the year because, frankly, it's pretty fucking crazy
yeah,
the amount of great films or possibly great films we have coming up
possibly.
from huge
We'll see.
directors, people we've been following for a long time, left and right, every other week. It's just non-stop. And it's kind of weird having all this to look forward to after, I mean, I don't want to say a dead year and a half, um, but a slower year and a half. And it kind of makes me wonder, like a lot of these movies are probably waiting for this moment to come out, when theaters are more reopened and they can actually make their money back. So if you don't mind, Shaun, I kind of want to recap what's
hmm
ahead of us the next few months. Actually, till the end of the year, I added some at the end because
Nice.
it's pretty crazy then too. And then at the end, maybe we can say what we're most excited about.
Yeah. I can only hold
Um,
so much in my brain at the same time, so I only have like the 10 movies that are coming out in October.
yeah, yeah. So here's my list of what I'm most excited for. If I forget anything, you can tell me. So I'm not including Venom, actually, even though that might be what we review next week.
Uh-huh.
But besides that, Titan.
Which is pretty exciting because oh no, who's directing it? Andy Serkis is directing it, which is kind of cool. Kind of rooting for him.
Kind of cool, but he's also makes some bad movies. So
He's only directed one movie, Mowgli, is my understanding, and
I heard Dad
that
turned that on once, and it was
yeah.
awful.
But
Um,
I always root for Andy
re
Serkis.
Yeah, yeah, same, same. Irregardless, we have the movie Titan coming out. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is
Titany.
the Palme de Jour. Is it Titany? The Palme de Jour
I've been
winning.
pronouncing it Titany.
Yeah, won the Palme de Jour at Cannes Film
Mm-hmm.
Festival earlier
Yeah,
this year. And every single movie that wins that award is typically remarkable and
mm-hmm.
something you have to see.
Directed
The trailer
by.
for it looks nuts. Have you
Uh,
seen it?
yeah, it's like
Okay.
a trailer that you're just like, what the hell
Yeah.
is this?
Stylized,
Yeah.
ridiculous,
Uh huh.
twisted film. I
Directed
don't know. So I'm just
by
excited. Yeah,
director
who's
of
directing that?
Raw.
Director of Raw, which was on
Yeah.
my top 10 list.
Yeah.
That
I forget her
cannibalistic horror
name.
film was
I'd have to
also
look it up, but
amazing.
yeah, that
That's
one I
really
didn't
exciting.
see, but yeah, really excited
Hmm.
for it.
Yeah, maybe you should start with Raw and then, or go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot to get through. The next film is Lamb,
Mm-hmm.
A24 movie. I feel like it's been I mean, A24 comes out a lot, but I feel like it's been a bit this year since I've seen A24 film.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie also is getting crazy good reviews. Like David Chen from the Slash Filmcast posted an amazing tweet about it that got me
Nice.
really hyped. The
Uh huh.
trailer for this is also awesome. So those are some indies coming up that are a little bit bigger. No Time to Die, the new James Bond movie that's
Mm-hmm.
been in suspension for years now by Cary Fukunaga, who is an credible director.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know Sam Mendes did one of a Bond film, but this is maybe one of the best, if not the
Sam
best director
Mendes
to
did
touch a Bond
Skyfall.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now we got Cary Fukunaga, so
Yeah.
they're giving this to really talented people, and I can't
Mm-hmm.
wait to see it.
Definitely.
I threw on Halloween Kills here just because shout out to Derek who gave the little previous film 5 stars. So I
Yeah.
guess we should all be anticipating this
Uh-huh.
one. So
Yeah.
maybe it'll be 5 stars as well.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see.
And then immediately after we got The Last Duel, Ridley Scott's
Yeah.
epic, medieval epic he hasn't done in a long time.
Written by, I believe it's written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. They kind of teamed back up and wrote the script for this
Okay,
movie, I believe.
that's what I didn't know that. That's actually really exciting. A
Yeah.
really solid script on top of Ridley
Mm-hmm.
Scott's great visuals.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lo and behold Dune, by Denis Villeneuve, which was our most anticipated movie of last year. Now it's our most anticipated movie this year.
Mm-hmm.
What else is there to say? And then we got like a three whammy: The French Dispatch by Wes Anderson. Just
Yeah.
throwing that at us.
Yeah.
Um, The Last Night in Soho by Edgar Wright, who's one of our longtime favorite directors
Yeah.
since that we've been
Definitely
watching since
one
like
of
high
our
school.
favorites for sure.
Yeah.
And
And
his
then
like
the
first real kind of turn into a non comedy. I
Yeah, let's
know
pause them.
ba-
Exactly. Like this is a
Baby
huge turn for him, and
yeah, Baby Driver was more action than, you know, kind of less of a comedy than most of his other movies, but it definitely was still funny and had his
right, Baby
signature kind of.
Driver was kind of him like getting out of like a genre film, even though it's
Mhm.
still kind of a genre film.
Yeah,
But this is like him,
this seems to be
yeah,
straight
going so
horror
far away
thriller.
from his other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So we're still
and then
in
we have,
October.
sorry, I'm actually missing the dates on all
Yeah.
these.
No, but we
One one that shocked me is the next one. Licorice Pizza,
mm-hmm.
Paul Thomas Anderson's film that comes out now in
Yeah.
November.
Yeah.
Trailer for that dropped, and it looks remarkable.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, his last movie, what was his last movie? Phantom Thread.
Phantom Thread,
I
yeah,
loved that
yeah.
movie.
I haven't
And
checked to see
every
if he's doing cinematography for Licorice Pizza as well, because he did
yeah,
that for
no,
Phantom
that's
Thread.
true.
Um, I mean, it looks good. Looks good.
Mm-hmm.
I threw the next one in there. Now we're getting towards December because you mentioned it. West Side Story.
Yeah.
It's Spielberg.
I gotta say,
The sets look gorgeous.
yeah,
Yeah.
I saw, you know, hearing about it, I was kind of pretty meh. I'm not a huge fan of the original, although it has its moments. But I've seen the trailer for this several times, and each time I'm just like, I'm kind of sold by this trailer. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and
Looks
yeah,
very expressive,
yeah,
and looks like they're trying really hard with
mm-hmm.
everything they're putting on screen.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I have memorable shots from the trailer stuck in my head that I can
Mm-hmm.
see, like with the shadows and the people. But
Yeah.
anyways, and then we got to mention, like we did last time, Matrix 4,
Mm-hmm.
Lana Wachowski, and then Spider-Man No Way Home, just to top off the year.
Yeah.
So like that alone is every single week from now till the end of the year what I just listed, and I'm sure
Yeah.
there's going to be a ton of indies sneaking up that are going to be great as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that is solid. We won't have a down week from now to the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Super exciting. And
Hope.
we should we talk about how we're going to fit all these movies into reviews? Our
Yeah. How did you want to
stratagem?
do? How'd
Well,
you
so
want to do one of these specials?
yeah, well, I kind of had the idea that it's October and there's so many movies coming out just in October, and that we could almost just do one episode with all of kind of the big horror movies that we are super excited about. So
That's
I
going to be fun.
think we are going to be doing probably the last weekend in October a horror movie episode, probably with Titany or Tit. Oh, how did you pronounce it?
Titan. I don't know.
Titan.
Yeah.
Lamb. We're
Halloween
Kills, maybe, probably.
Sure.
Antlers is also coming. Did you mention Antlers?
I didn't even mention Antlers.
That's also coming out. That looks interesting. And then probably we're going. We just me and you talked about this, but we might be doing Last Night in Soho, like the day it comes out. We might record that episode the day that Last Night in Soho comes out, and
That'll be really fun.
Yeah, that would review that movie.
So horror movie episode, end of October. Something to look forward to.
Hopefully we'll get it out before Halloween, and maybe people can take some recommendations for Halloween weekend.
So I'm curious, out of all these massive movies, what's your top three and what's your number one most anticipated of the rest of the year? Is this a lot?
I have a pretty easy number one. I've been excited about it since for forever. I'm sure you know. This guy was made the number one movie of the decade, from my number one movie from last decade, the teens.
Arrival.
Dune. Yeah.
Yeah.
Arrival
Dennis
was my
Villeneuve's
number one.
Dune.
Yep.
All right, I'm just gonna straight up agree with you. It's got to be Dune. There's
Mm-hmm.
actually some close seconds in here,
Mm-hmm.
but Dune has been the
Yeah.
long time. It got
Yeah.
delayed. I've been wanting to see it forever. It's
Like,
gonna be a theater experience.
yeah.
So,
I mean, like right now, I'm probably excited for several movies. Pretty, they're all pretty close together. But I've been
mhm.
excited for Dune for years, and
Yeah. So,
definitely was into. Two
what's your
would
number two?
probably be Last Night in Soho.
All right, my number two, honestly, is because of the trailer, Licorice Pizza. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson, I guess Edgar
Yeah.
Wright too, but
Yeah.
it
I
only
mean,
delivers
Paul Thomas
masterpieces, and
Anderson
Licorice
is a
Pizza trailer got me excited.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
what's your number
that would
three?
be my number three is Licorice Pizza. And honestly, I haven't even really seen the trailer. I watched it a little bit on my phone with the sound off because I was on set working. But yeah, just the Paul
Hmm.
Thomas Anderson movie is always a big event.
I'm gonna say, God, well, it probably should be Last Night in Soho. If I could watch a
Yeah,
movie tomorrow,
say
I would
something
choose
different.
Matrix. I would choose Matrix
Wow.
4. Like,
Whoa.
if I could just go sit down in a theater and see one of these movies third, it would
Hmm.
be Matrix 4. So,
Hmm.
pretty exciting.
Yes.
Hopefully, the rest of the year, we literally only have masterpieces to review
Yeah.
and no more movies we're disappointed in.
Yeah. Definitely. Unlike.
Hey, no spoilers. But we have a lot to talk about. I don't think
Yeah.
it's so straightforward.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears back to Dear Evan Hansen.
Hmm.
This film is directed by Steven Chbosky. It stars Ben Platt, Julianne Moore, and Caitlin Dever, amongst other familiar faces.
Hmm.
Plot description is a film adaptation of the Tony and Grammy Award winning musical about Dear Evan Hansen, a high school senior with social anxiety disorder, and his journey of self discovery and acceptance following the suicide of a fellow classmate. Um,
Heavy stuff.
Heavy stuff. And actually, in that description, there's already some things his journey of acceptance and self discovery. We'll talk about that in spoilers.
Hmm.
I want to know, since you're the guest, what's your first impressions of this movie? What's your initial thoughts? What's the goods? What's the bads?
Well, I normally like to start off positive, but really my
Uh-huh.
walk away from this movie, my thoughts were um, unbearable, uh,
Oh. Oh.
excruciating,
Ooh.
uh, yeah, confusing,
Confusing. Okay.
yeah, intolerable. Um,
Oh.
but most of all, boring.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
and you are right. I think I've heard a little bit of the conversation around this movie, and it seems like what a lot of people are saying about it. They're making fun of it a lot, and um, it seems like it almost sounds like this movie is like the next Cats, right? It's like you know it's so terrible,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like you, but the
People are
almost
hating on
yeah,
this
people are
movie. People
hating
are
this movie.
dragging this film.
But honestly, the maybe even the worst part about this movie is that it's actually not as bad as a lot of those movies like Cats. It's not a complete catastrophe. It is just
No, it's not.
it is there's nothing about it that is you just like it boggles the mind like how someone could have come up with such a bad movie, or who the hell could have possibly thought it was a good idea to do something in this way, like human faces on cats, or like there's a lot of baffling decisions that you can really point at and make fun of with a movie like Cats. But this movie, there's really nothing, and which makes it even, in my mind, makes it even worse. And it just made it boring and intolerable for me.
I mean, some of your original adjectives, I don't know if they necessarily line up with that final statement you just said.
I
Um,
mean, it's unbearable. Like I just couldn't. And the another thing I have to say, This movie is
Mhm.
2 hours and 20 minutes long,
It's
and
yeah,
it
it's a
was
drag.
an
So like
absolute slog.
yeah. Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I certainly will enjoy getting into kind of more of the parts and pieces of this movie, but that's my initial thoughts. Um,
A thing that doesn't help the slog is the fact that we're watching a very common story. I actually was trying to think if I could like name the like where it got its like script from, where it's borrowing a script from, maybe a lot of different
World's Greatest
places.
Dad.
World's Greatest Dad. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that one, but just like the stacking of lies and digging your hole deeper until it just is so unbearable and drowning that you finally have to come clean. And then the final act is you have to like in some ways try to remedy your mistake to the people you gave it to. Like I feel like that is like such a common
Mm-hmm.
plot device that we've seen, and we
Yeah.
know where it's going, and we know that the final two acts of when everything collapses and you see it coming a mile away. So like it doesn't help a 2 hour and 20 minute movie with a story that is this generic and predictable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's a fluff piece. Like so, I saw this film on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Granted, after Ben Platt had already left,
Okay.
but you can watch his like performance at the Tonys of him doing the main song and stuff. But so a few years after it had already won the awards and the cast had rotated out, and it was good. It was fine. There's some ways this translates better to a stage than it does in a film, and we can talk about that in a bit. But a thing that's granted from stage often is the length. Like when you see a Broadway show, people
Mm-hmm.
expect it to be 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
When you see a movie that's kind of this plain, um, and this simple of a story, it does not need to be 2.5 hours long,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like this could be an hour and 35 and convey all the exact same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Totally
so
agree.
that is, yeah, you're seeing a performance, you expect more, but when you're watching a movie, you don't need this.
Yeah.
And it definitely is a drag. And I felt like I remember when the stuff, like when you feel the climax is happening, when like all the emotions are spewing out, I was like looked at the time and there's still like 35, 40 minutes left
Mm-hmm.
after that. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, what
Oh.
else happens?
Oh
Like, what?
no.
Oh
Oh
no.
no.
So I know what you mean. I know what you
um.
mean. I
Yeah.
mean, let me go into a few of the things you were saying about its severity of people dragging it. Maybe I did not feel that horrificness from this movie.
Yeah.
Uh, I agree with you. It's not a great film. It's not even that good of a film. But I don't think it's that bad. I couldn't. There's a lot of melodrama. It wears its heart on its sleeve, and you do have to get through some like very blunt scenes. But I didn't necessarily hate too much in it either, as much as I'm hearing online. And I was kind of like thinking in my head, I was like, I wonder if trying to find what everyone hates about this movie is keeping me entertained because I'm like constantly searching for it in every
Mm-hmm.
scene and waiting for it to happen, and nothing like falls apart ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it never did. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
that was keeping my entertainment, that alone.
Um. Yeah. I agree. It's not a catastrophe. In that there's nothing single, like I said earlier, there's nothing, no single thing that you can point at. Like you're not gonna, I feel like you're not gonna find a bunch of clips online of like, look how shitty this
Yeah,
is, this
how did they
piece.
mess this
Yeah.
up?
But at no point in this movie was there, um was I engaged. I don't know. At no point was I really engaged with the characters
Mm-hmm.
and engaged with it emotionally, and certainly not to the level that the characters were emoting emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess for me, there was probably about 20, 15, 20, 25 minutes in the beginning of this film where I kind
Yeah.
of was like, this could go somewhere. This
Oh,
this is
okay. I'm glad you agree. I was
this
going to say the same
this
thing
is a
too.
story that has potential. I saw, you
Uh-huh.
see this character who is clearly suffering from, crippling social anxiety, disorders, severe depression,
It helps that the
and
opening song is the best song in the whole musical.
probably.
Like
Um,
it's the main theme.
and like I even got some. I mean, I'm in no by no means an really knowledgeable on it, but like Asperger's, or even like autism,
Hmm.
kind of vibes from it, where the way that he would
Yeah,
like
that he
be
was conveying.
walking through the school in that opening scene, and it was just like there were students everywhere and just noises and everything, and all that stimulation was, the way
Yeah.
that it was, overwhelming him, and he was just kind of barely holding it together. I really did kind of think, like, I mean, I kind of knew that it wasn't going to, just because of the things I had been hearing about it, but I was kind of like, there's some directions that they could go with this movie that could really talk about mental disorders and talk about depression, or and it might actually have something to say. But I do think it pretty quickly, and really right after the kind of catalyst, I guess you would say, happens, where
Mhm.
he goes and he gets the letter from the parents, and
Maybe the first time he's eating dinner with them,
yeah,
maybe it
when
starts getting a
yeah,
little awkward and forced
mm-hmm,
and melodramatic at that point.
yes,
Um,
and
they're like they're like, what tree? Oh, the apple
yeah,
orchard. Like, oh, you were best friends with him.
yeah,
Oh, like we're
yeah,
like forcing all these like coincidences to happen. You're like,
yeah, and it's
mhm.
like he's just trying to kind of explain a situation, and they just keep talking over him, which I understand what they were trying to do with that. They were trying to show that the mom is
She
seeing what
needed
she
it.
wants to see.
Yes.
She
Yeah.
needed that, but the scene just really kind of didn't work, the way that it it felt very forced. And then,
Hmm.
like, after that, the decision for him to actually follow through with it and be an active participant in this lie is when the movie really starts losing you.
And that's actually the song that really loses me is the happiest song in the whole
Yeah,
musical,
yeah,
and it's like a big band jig
mm-hmm,
with him and his friend montage faking all the lies,
uh-huh,
and the song kind of sucks,
yeah,
and the tone doesn't work,
mm-hmm,
um, and it's like the weirdest song in the whole music. It like doesn't even fit with the genre that the musical's in.
mm-hmm,
Um,
yeah,
it kind of reminds me of the opening track to the second act of Hamilton when it kind of does like the same type of Broadway song.
mm-hmm,
Anyways, very specific thing.
yeah,
But I am glad you mentioned the first 20 minutes or so because actually, so Ben Platt has been receiving a lot of slack, or not slack, a lot of
flack,
negativity,
mm-hmm,
flack on
I
this
think,
role.
mm-hmm.
Am I saying that right? Flack?
I think it's
Slack?
flack, right? I questioned
Flack. Yeah,
myself.
he's receiving a lot of flack on this role, and I was actually shocked, like surprised, because I kind of thought he brought a lot to
Mm-hmm.
the role,
The thing,
and I thought he what?
yeah, well, I was gonna kind of
Yeah,
agree. I don't think
yeah,
it was again, it wasn't a catastrophic role. The thing that I have heard a lot is that him being, I believe he was 26 when they shot this movie,
sure,
playing a 17-year-old,
sure.
and the way that they did all the makeup was pretty unconvincing. And the one thing I can kind of understand about that is that I think David Chen said this, is that the things that he is doing in this movie are so morally reprehensible that you have to believe that it's a young person, uh,
I thought about that at
with
the
a
end.
lack of understanding of the world
Yeah,
and people, that
hmm,
just to be able to get over that hump of even buying into the premise of the movie,
yeah.
let
There's
alone
some
like,
pivotal things at the end that start happening, and in my head I was like, oh yeah, like this is a child,
uh-huh,
like, and that's why people are giving him slight benefit of the doubt at the ending because
mm-hmm,
this is like a struggling
yeah.
16-year-old or whatnot,
But if you
and how
have,
mad can you be at a kid like
yeah,
that?
and
Um,
that works kind of. It's still pretty tough, for a
yeah,
16, 17-year old. But if even there's a little piece in the back of your head that thinks that you're watching a 27 or a 26-year-old doing all these things, it very quickly becomes almost impossible to forgive him, or even root for him, or even care about the character in any meaningful way.
Yeah. I think a lot of the mannerisms that you were mentioning, like about his anxiety and the way he expresses that, like while just walking down the hallway in that opening
Mm-hmm.
song, I think a lot of it, that strength is helped from the fact that he did it for years on Broadway. Like
Mm-hmm.
I often see like on Broadway, they meticulously, obviously they choreograph dancing on Broadway, but they meticulously choreograph like um expression and like hand gestures, and they're all the same, always the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like it's more meticulous than a film,
Mm-hmm.
and or a film in this caliber typically
Yeah.
would be, because on Broadway every time they sing it they do the exact same movement,
Mm-hmm.
like the exact same twitch, and they've honed it down to that detail.
Mm-hmm.
Because they do it a million, like they do it for years, and an
Mm-hmm.
actor just does a scene for one day.
Yeah.
So they improv more. And I felt like he brought that detail into his character
Mm-hmm.
and the way the character reacted, just people passing by him, and all that nervousness that he kind of expressed in the opening like 15 minutes. And I thought it was a really, I think it was very detailed, and
Mm-hmm.
another actor wouldn't have been able to capture that in such a short amount of time.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, I have a lot of other problems with the movie
All
too.
right.
Um,
Should we go to spoilers? That's
well,
a
let
good
me let
opening,
me
I
say
feel
I
like.
do want to point
Okay.
out before that this movie has a lot of very clunky themes and very well. There's actually several things I still want to talk about before we even jump into spoilers. There's like
Go for
so
it.
not there's a lot of very clunky themes in this movie. I think the way that the movie deals with mental illness very quickly gets sidelined, and the movie becomes very shallow in its depiction of depression and sadness. And like it reminded me of a Maria Bamford line where she's talking about how most people see depression in terms of being bummed out.
Hmm.
Um, and like that's how a lot of this movie felt to me. Like it was portraying the melodrama as just so like there's the term misery porn, and
Right.
that people really, people are on both sides of on that. But the problem is with this movie, it's like misery porn, except for it becomes very uninterested in what is making the characters and the people miserable.
Are
Like
you
after the
saying that like
first
the
act,
obvious? Oh, go keep going. Sorry.
after the first act of the film, they're no longer interested in what is making the characters miserable, and becomes just focused on the misery, and they're just sad for sad sake, and they're just bummed out. Um, yeah, and it's wholly uninterested in exploring what mental illness is all about, what depression is all about, and um, and really even pretty clunky scenes where, like, I mean, we should get into this in spoilers, but
Yeah.
the way
Well,
that
I don't.
it deals with like solutions
Okay. Hmm.
for depression and things.
Yeah,
So
actually,
yeah.
that is what I wanted to get to. I agree with that last part for sure. I mean, the first statement, I'd say the counter to that is um, the like head of the class character who does
Mm-hmm.
all the organization in the school. I think is very much the solution to what you're saying, and she's there to say like this
Mm-hmm.
expresses itself in many different ways, and people hide it in many different ways, and um, yeah, she represents that, and she
Mm-hmm.
represents the other,
Yeah.
like she tries to make it known. I mean, that's her whole song, is about everyone
Yeah.
hiding in that, and you might not notice at first sight. um
Yeah. I do agree with
so I
that.
think that's the
Although I
counter
do
to
think
it.
that that was one small scene a big
Yep.
big movie, and she is later sidelined, and it's never again her character is never
Mhm.
again explored in that way.
Let's touch back on the wrap up of that in spoilers,
Yeah.
but I want to hear what's some of your other
I had a couple other
ones
ones
you want to
like
show.
in terms of
Yeah,
themes. I think
yeah,
we'll get
themes.
into that in spoilers, but like the way that the movie handles like social classism and like rich versus poor was really clunky and really
Hmm.
awkward. I don't. We should talk about that in spoilers.
Yeah,
But the other thing is like how boring were the musical numbers in this movie,
yeah.
and like
Let's. We
in
don't need to go
a
into spoilers for talking about
yeah
that.
in a genre that has a long rich history, musical theater being adapted to film, a long rich history of
Uh,
incredible cinematography and award-winning cinematography and set design and remarkable set pieces.
mhm.
um, Things like movies like Chicago and Les Miserables, and we mentioned it earlier, the West Side Story, and we just watched another incredible one
You're
earlier this
mixed. Okay,
year,
you're
In
mixing
the
so many
Heights.
things. You're mixing creativity of all these things. I want to talk about them. You're talking about
Yes,
let's start with the music first.
well, sure,
Okay,
yes,
so the
that's
music
true.
is plain. The music's simple. It focuses on like just the lyrics and the vocal melody, and almost nothing else is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and the opening number, "Tap Tap Tap" in the glass, I think is a great song. But there's very few other songs in
Mm-hmm.
this that are even anything. There's one point where his classmate, that the girl who does all the fundraising,
Mm-hmm.
literally has like a 30-second song in this, just because they had to give her something, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
one line like said 4 times. So, like the music is playing, and you know what, it's like it's a new trend in musicals. I'm not an expert, but like of just this like plain pop, good old pop musical.
Uh-huh.
It kind of reminds me of like Frozen style
Mm-hmm.
songwriting. um, and as opposed to like something we just watched recently like Hamilton, which is just
Mm-hmm.
like so far above and beyond something like this delivers a
Yeah.
few like verses and choruses. Every song starts out quiet and gets a little catchy, and then goes quiet again, and then has a
Mm-hmm.
bridge and ending. Like they're typical and they're dry, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a problem for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, like virtually every song is utterly forgettable.
Mm-hmm.
Like even going into this movie, I think I had read
Dun,
some
dun,
reviews
dun,
of people who are like really excited, and they like talk about how much they love the music in the from the musical, and I was just like, what are you talking
there
about? What?
and I know I love this kind of music, but it's like it's just four chord progressive
Mm-hmm.
pop songs. Every single song from
It's
from
yeah.
front to back.
It's in it
Um,
like it just contributes to like this movie is just so boring and so
yeah.
bland. And like on
You're
top
talking
of
about the filmmaking then.
and
Let's
then
let's
on
move to
top
that,
of that
okay?
the filmmaking, like in a genre that is like it's like a match made in heaven for cinematography. They do absolutely nothing to
Hmm.
even attempt to enhance the story that is being told by the music. It's just
And that's pretty
90,
important on stage is
95% of the
for
time. Yeah, block it
Mhm.
on stage, blocking and everything. Like 95% of the time in this movie, it's just a static camera on a tripod filming a close up of a someone.
in just a normal school,
Yeah,
just hanging out in a classroom
yeah,
or in a cafeteria, nothing exciting
on
going
a
on
on
around
a
them or anything. Yeah.
normal
Park
35 to
bench.
50 millimeter lens.
Yeah.
And I know what you might say is Les Miserables. There's an unbroken close up of
No, no, I'm not going to say that.
I'm not you, but people might say that. But I mean, even that shot is a beautifully shot portrait of a human, and
Yeah.
you compare any shot in this movie to that. Anyways,
So
so
you know the scene where it shows all the social, so the like gimmick on stage, like on Broadway, was very social media,
mhm,
like from beginning to end. Like that's why this or this movie opens up with him like typing all the shots, the
mhm,
computer and like the pop-ups. But that theme's continued throughout the show on Broadway. And I don't
mhm,
know if you remember, like halfway through when the word was getting spread
Yeah.
of the viral campaign thing that was going on,
Yeah.
and you started seeing all these people making videos too, and you saw all these little images and screens. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what the Broadway stage looked like the whole time.
Hmm.
And those images all over the stage were kind of supporting the story in the
Interesting.
background.
Huh.
It was just like there was a little more to it,
Yeah.
rather than just it was a classroom or
Yeah.
they're at a park on a swing set. Like
Yeah.
it's a little more creative on stage, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's interesting because like that was a big question for me is what about this movie really connected with people for it to win so many awards? Um,
yeah.
is it just? I mean, this movie really does not um, show anything really interesting for me.
Hmm.
Well, I could move into
Spoilers.
spoilers now. Yeah. So
Spoilers.
yeah,
So stop here if you haven't seen it. We're going to talk about some details, and there is
or
details
just
going
keep
to at the end.
or just keep
Or just
listen
keep watching
watching
if you're
this
not going to see
and
it.
don't see it.
So the ending, Sean. I'm curious. What did you think of the twist?
The twist was
He
so boring.
he
So
jumped out
boring.
of the tree. Did that hit you at all?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
I
that's again, that's like perfectly highlights this movie was
Mhm.
so uninterested in what makes like the concept of depression and why and it was just about the whole build up. I was like, okay, why is he running through the forest all like sad by himself? Why is he
Mhm.
climbing this tree by himself? And why was it that he was out there and no one was
Okay,
able to
so you
come
got
rescue
feelings
him
there's a
because
reason for
and
it, and
and I was like
this
that is
cast is
so
such a
much
big
more
deal.
interesting, but it was just like he was bummed out and he tried
Yeah,
to he jumped off of a tree and
I
I
was
assume
looking.
it
I
wasn't
was
committing suicide, but if it was it a cry for help, what like it doesn't explore anything of any interest surrounding that. We knew he was bummed out, we knew he was sad and depressed and didn't have any friends, so like he jumped out of a tree. Like I assume it was, maybe was it an attempted suicide?
I don't know, Sean. I think
Was
you're
it
being a little
okay?
harsh right now.
All
I
right,
I'm
all
not
right.
even that big of a fan of this, but like he tried to kill himself. Like I don't know, like why you're
I mean,
what other
like,
questions? And he tells his mom at point blank, like in the probably hardest words possible, that he tried to kill himself that summer. That's why he has a cast. Um, I I don't. I think it was much more effective on stage. I remember it being like kind of a mic drop moment on
mm-hmm,
Broadway, and just like really being shocked that it went that far, and that's actually what came of that opening song and everything. Um, when you're falling in a forest and there's nobody around and all that stuff, like, and it coming full circle. In the movie, in the movie, I think it was a lot less of a shocking moment or a big turn on everything. And I think they like kind of, I don't know, I think they kind of glossed over it a little bit,
mm-hmm.
but not to the extent that you're giving it troubles for.
I was
I
just
I
so
think
let
it's pretty
down by
obvious
it.
what happened.
I was just
Okay.
like, so it was like there's so much build up to it, and you knew that something was coming from it, and yeah, it just like to me, I was just
You know what I think it was, and I hate
such
like
an
telling
eye
people
roll moment.
how to make it better, but like I think it was the fact that they showed it happen a full scene before he said it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so by the time he tells his mom, you already know the
Mm-hmm.
twist, right? And I think they should have combined those to
Yeah.
have you see it and hear it at the same time or something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that could have been like more of a shock instead of,
I will also say it. I
yeah.
actually genuinely didn't really understand what they were going for, because like in my head I was like, I assume it was like he was an attempted suicide, but and I
Mhm.
think it may be, is it because the way they shot it, it didn't like, maybe if you had seen how high he was in the tree, you don't
I
really
know what you
know
mean.
how tall, how
Yes.
high up he was. And like, okay, he broke his arm, but like my nephew or my niece broke her arm falling like 5 feet
I know
off of a
exactly what
thing.
you
So
mean.
like if he had climbed all the way up to the top of a tree and jumped up, but like at the same time, then you're breaking. If it's a, I'm sorry, this is really insensitive for like suicide. It's really terrible. But like I'll just say visually, it was not communicated well that it was a legitimate attempted suicide. Um, and it
I'll
was,
back you up there. Yeah, like I had that thought right when I saw the scene. I was just like, they should have made it look higher.
mm-hmm,
And I knew exactly what they were going for, but I was
yeah,
like, they should have just made this feel more extreme. Maybe it's when they show the fall, he kind of just like plops on his side a little bit
mm-hmm,
instead of like
yeah.
having to maybe do a like
That was another
somersault
one.
and making
Yeah.
it seem more extreme.
Uh huh.
Um, and that's kind of nitpicking, but I do agree. I had that same quick thought. I was like, they should have made that more dramatic, like more brutal or
Mm-hmm.
something. Um,
There's no blood. I don't
but
mean. I don't know how. Anyways, it just like I don't know. It
let's
didn't
talk
have much
about
impact.
let's talk about the ending.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I was most. I think one of the things I was most disappointed in is I hear people are having troubles with the fact that this kid receives like forgiveness from people,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe they communicate this better on Broadway too. Um, but I didn't. I kind of liked what they did with the family. Like he gave him a video, but they never like reached back out to him. We never see
Mm-hmm.
that. He doesn't get a kiss at the ending.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's supposed to be a long time later, like at the end of the school year. He meets back up with her. Maybe they didn't communicate how long it had been since she'd seen her at that point. But I like that they just met once and she leaves and says goodbye to him. Um, I didn't feel like everything is totally fine for him and that he got this huge redemption. And so I disagree with some of the criticism on this. Um,
Yeah, I don't disagree with you either.
okay.
I don't. Yeah, he didn't. He was perhaps let off the hook a bit by the movie, in that he does after all this he doesn't really the movie does he doesn't you don't really see him paying for what he did to the family, um, but you do see him, um, you know, kind of having a bit of a redemption where he is actually seeking out information about him, and so like I think there is some meaning you can get from that, outside of just that he's being redeemed. But um, yeah, so yeah, I don't know. And then you don't really you see him, I guess, back to the struggle of his life, the same things that he was struggling with in the beginning. Um, so yeah,
I feel like especially at the end, I mean it's all melodramatic at the end, just like
yeah,
all of it. He has this kind of like final finale kind of coming to terms song that he sings in the orchard and stuff. And I don't know. At that point, I was like so checked out. It definitely
mm-hmm,
wasn't working for me at all. Like I was going to say the plot description when I read it out loud, his journey of self-discovery and acceptance. I was
mm-hmm,
at the
yeah,
ending. I definitely don't feel like I didn't get a good confirmation of
yeah,
that like overcoming.
yeah.
I saw,
Either of those.
yeah, I saw that the big problem he caused was giving him a purpose in the moment. But after everything came tumbling down, I didn't really see his big like comeback in the orchard
Mm-hmm.
like I think you were supposed to feel at all.
Yeah,
I think that was a big missed opportunity.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it all felt very blah at the end. I like him jumping out of the tree, and then even like the scene in the orchard. It all, yeah, it didn't work. Do you want to talk a little bit about more about the themes?
Yeah.
Uh,
You were going to say
like
class struggle.
yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of class. It was trying to say something about, wealth and poverty and like the difference. But yeah, it seemed really clunky. Um,
I liked the line where he's like you're rich and
yeah,
he's but they're like rich and you're poor. I
yeah,
mean, he lives in a totally normal neighborhood
yeah,
and he's totally surviving. He eats and has clothes and is
yeah,
fine and will probably get student loans and go to community college. Like he's not
yeah,
poor.
yeah.
Um
definitely. And so like that, I agree with that because, the look of his house, sure, she's a single mom, she's struggling, she's having to work long hours just to be able to pay for everything. But yeah, it didn't really seem like he was like, poor in the way that you would normally depict poverty
Yeah.
in
And
a movie.
clunky in the sense that like the other family is just he happens to be like a
Mm-hmm.
successful lawyer, like of course.
Yeah.
And that's just it. He has a great house, he's a lawyer, of
Uh-huh.
course.
And then like
Just like Lunt and clunky.
uh-huh. And then like um it just like felt so weird to have like this 16-year-old girl driving a $30,000 Jeep, brand
Yeah.
new Jeep Wrangler in a lot of these
Yeah.
scenes. And it's just like, I don't know. And sure, maybe that was a part of them showing the wealth of the family, but it just seemed very strange to me. And then there were a few
Yeah, he's
things
like,
like,
you don't have a car? What?
yeah,
I'm like, he's 17. Like
yeah,
so many people don't
yeah,
have a car
yeah,
when they're
definitely.
17. Like
And
jaw dropping.
yeah, and I thought like the mom
It's
was
like the movie wanted us to be like, what? He doesn't have a car and he's
uh-huh,
17? Oh my God, poor guy.
yeah, and
Um,
like, but yeah, at the same time, I mean, you can get a shitty
what?
car pretty cheap.
Yeah, you
But
can work at McDonald's
yeah,
and get a $300 car after the first week of you
yeah.
working there.
Uh-huh.
Um,
I sold my Toyota Camry for $400 and it still ran. Anyway,
yeah.
sorry. And then like I thought the mom was treated really poorly. And like it there were several scenes where it felt like the movie was against the mom, the single mom working long
Mm-hmm.
hours and like, oh, she needs to be there for her kid. All she does is pay for his therapy and his prescription medication to deal with depression. And this was another thing about the movie not really
She
exploring
was all-star
depression.
mom.
Yeah, she kind of
She was
was like,
everything she did and said to him was
yeah,
so perfect.
yeah.
Uh,
And like he's just like,
he's like, she's
you
not
don't
here for
care
Taco
about me.
Tuesday.
Yeah, she's not here for Taco Tuesday, and you don't care about me. You just send me to therapy and pump me full of drugs. And like she's probably like stressing out as a single mom, stressing out so hard about where's she going to get the money for these therapy sessions from her kid who's dealing with severe depression and crippling social anxiety so that he can and okay, yeah, to pay for all those things she has to work long hours and she's not going to because she's a single mom. And it's just like
Yeah.
it felt like it
This
treated her really
is a little hard on
unfairly.
her.
And
Yeah,
like
I
and
mean,
then like
the second she gets home from work, her first thing is to go to Dear Evan
yeah.
Hansen's room to check on him.
Yeah.
Like I know she's a great mom. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like comparing her with Amy Adams, who is like portrayed in the movie as an all-star mom. And but I don't think the movie explored the other kid, I forget his name, Connor, and why
Mhm.
he was the way he was. Because like there's some
It's his dad because of his dad show. Because he was old enough to
because
remember the dad dying.
and that was a weird line. She goes, I was one, so I like barely remember him. He died when I was like one, so I barely remember him.
I
It's
was
like,
yeah,
what?
right when she
And
said that,
then
I was
like
like, they should have rewrote
and
that
then
very poorly.
uh at the same time you have to think, well, the older brother, I don't know how old she is. I know Evan was a senior and he's like dating this girl, but she has an older brother who also goes to the same school. I don't know, maybe he was held back a grade or two, but he's an older brother. So how much older is he? Like 2-3 years older? So he was like 3 or 4 years old. And
The
so
dad died.
the dad dying was I guess maybe a bigger deal thing. I don't know.
Just wasn't
Um,
adding up in your head all
yeah,
this
none of
timeline.
that was adding up in my head. And yeah, so but yeah, you really never get the sense of who he is or why he was the way he was.
Yeah,
And
Sean, but he
was it?
had black paint on his fingernails.
Yeah, he's
So,
troubled. And like,
so you know he's
but the
troubled.
movie does like go out of its way to show how angry the sister was at him, and like she clearly thought he was a terrible person. Like he must, I mean, like all the what are all the things that he did to her, and um you know, how like was he a bully, or like what did he do to her that made her so mad at him? And then like what
Yeah, I didn't
was
really get the she was like he called me out to beg me for money and I gave it to him.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it kind of made me think like he was on a lot of drugs in
Yeah,
rehab and they
yeah,
kicked him out of the house.
mm-hmm.
Like, but he was coming back for money.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it actually didn't actually add up that much because he was kind of still in school
Mm-hmm.
and
And
I actually don't know.
yeah,
You're right. They could have gone a little more in depth on what was making this guy um, be who he was at
mm-hmm.
that time. So
And
yeah,
that's like
I was kind of lost.
he was bummed out is what it was, and he was just
That's
bummed
okay.
out.
That's where you're trying to get at
Yeah.
the kind of the shallowness of that examination.
Mm-hmm.
Like his
And
black
like what are
fingernails. His dad
and
died. He's bummed out, so he's depressed.
yeah, and also like what are his parents' responsibility for that uh, um for that thing? Did they ignore the signs of depression or whatever he was dealing with, maybe social mental disorders that he was dealing with, even like addiction or whatever it was? Meanwhile, this single mom is being portrayed as a bad mom for sending her kid to therapy
I
and
don't think
buying.
these things are unsaid, Sean. Like they come out of points. Like remember the whole internet it was saying what you're saying. That was one of the big
That's
points of backlash,
true, but then like
and
the
it
movie
like
portrayed
destroyed
it.
their family for a bit.
But the movie portrayed
Um,
it as the internet's being unfair because of Evan's letter, because they just didn't know, because all they had was this letter that Evan wrote, that everyone thought was the letter that he wrote, and so because of that they're blaming the family, which was unfair because they're not responsible for it. And I don't know, it was very clunky. Yeah, very little of it worked
so
in any
I want to say one
way.
more thing to kind of wrap this up after this negative explosion that we've both been going through. And I think, okay, if and no one's still listening, but the movie
Correct.
isn't that awful.
True.
I honestly think that. I think we have dug pretty deep onto some details that it got wrong, but I think the movie is long and sometimes boring and plain,
Almost
but
entirely boring and plain.
but I do think we're making it sound like an absolute disaster, which I don't think it was.
These are
I
just
think
these are just things that a 2 hour and 20 minute runtime of a melodrama about mental illness and social anxiety disorders need to have in order to have the right to have anyone watch it.
I'm more worried about the long scenes of people just sitting in a bed staring at each other singing at the top of their lungs and how
Yeah.
awkward that looked.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
and how it plays so much better on stage than just in a bedroom
Mm-hmm.
or at a kitchen table.
Yeah.
Um,
Or on a
those
couch.
were though I had bigger problems with that than I did some of these specifics.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I
Yeah.
think we've gone on for a bit. I
Yeah.
think we everyone knows probably to skip this one.
Yeah.
Um, but I do want to say, Ben Platt, you actually did do a good job. And I'm glad you played that part because you brought a lot to it, especially in the first 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else, Sean?
So many more things.
I know. I just feel like we're at like an
Yeah.
hour and
Yeah.
10 minutes. Maybe we're not.
Yeah. We're
Um,
55, so we definitely
okay.
should end it
Oh,
there.
okay. So we have a lot of great stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff we'll love coming forward. Don't
Mm-hmm.
worry. Next is going to be possibly Many Saints of Newark or Venom. We're still up in the air, but we will
Mm-hmm.
see you on next Tuesday at 8. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for listening. Um, and thanks for joining me, Shaun.
Yep.
Thanks for watching this drag.
Yep.